special webinar. It's going to be our second Vice President Candidates Forum. My name is Chris Nussman. I'm NENA's Communications Director, and just a few items of note before I hand things over to our moderator for today, Mary Boyd, one of NENA's past presidents. We are recording this webinar, so if you miss any part of it, want to share it with coworkers or colleagues or people from your chapter, we'll be sending you an email with a link to the webinar archive, which is going to be housed on NENA's YouTube channel, as well as a PDF of this slide deck. And of course, this webinar is all about getting you informed and helping you make an educated choice for who you vote for NENA's second Vice President. So we encourage you to make it interactive. In the GoToWebinar interface, there's a question box, and please type in your questions, and we'll get to as many of those as we can at the end of the webinar, should time allow. Some dates to remember for the election. On April 28th, you'll be getting an email that'll allow you to access the online ballot. You'll be able to vote once and only once, and once you make your selection and cast your vote, that'll be final. We'll be taking votes through May 19th, and then after that, at the end of June, the election results will be certified, and then on July 1st in Denver at the NENA 2015 Conference and Expo, the new board will be sworn in. And now a quick note about how today's webinar is going to be. The format of it, the candidates will each give 5-minute introductions. You'll get to learn about them and how they see the future of NENA and 911. Then our moderator, Mary Boyd, will ask the candidates a number of questions, and then, as I mentioned, you in the audience will get to pose your own questions if we have time. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Mary to introduce the candidates and to allow them to give their opening statements.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mary Boyd. I want to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon. We have 4 candidates that we will hear from this afternoon for second VP for NENA's board. The first one, if you would, Chris, move to Carolyn's slide. I'd like to introduce Carolyn Collier. Chris, can we? There you go. Thank you. For those that are on the webinar, you'll see Carolyn's photo. She has been a 911 professional since 1978. She serves on the Florida 911 board, has been Florida's NENA president for the chapter, and also received the state's highest honor, being the Jim Martin Award recipient. Carolyn, I'm going to turn the floor over to you now. You have 10 minutes to speak to the membership.
Thank you very much. As she said, my name is Carolyn Collier, and I have been involved with 911 since 1978. I started out as a telecommunication officer and then became a dispatcher, and then worked my way up through being a state certified law enforcement officer, where I worked for the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Department while I was still dispatching. In 1981, the Board of County Commissioners took over our 911 for St. Lucie County. We are a central communications center. We dispatch for 3 law enforcement agencies, and we also have a fire and rescue that's county-wide. They are their own taxing district. I am responsible for 60 employees on the daily operations of the 911 center, and have thoroughly enjoyed it. In 2004, I got my ENT, and now I would like to move forward, and I'm very interested in the location accuracy because of a lot of waterways that we have here in Florida, as well as it being such a diverse land. So to us, with a lot of high-rises to single buildings to being out in the middle of nowhere, where we still do have a lot of rural areas, location accuracy is a very important thought that I have, and wanting to move forward. I know that it's also very important with FCC right now that they've got a couple of papers out, some white papers that they're working on. The Other thing that I would like to also see is to improve our membership. Since membership has been opened up to the telecommunication officer, the membership has totally increased. And the state of Florida, they now have to be state certified. So one of the things I'd like to see is nationwide to have a certification for the telecommunication officers. Not only will that help with the training, but I think it would help with making sure that everybody maintains the same kind of service. And I see NENA filling in that gap by offering courses that aren't being offered today, especially toward the telecommunicator and in the 911 world. Basically, as I said that in 2013 that I had received the Jim Martin Award, which I was very surprised to receive that. I have been instrumental in working with our conferences. We do 2 conferences a year down here in Florida. We do our 911 coordinators by state statute and by our state plan. They're supposed to meet twice a year. So them not having a funding mechanism, the Florida NENA chapter has stepped up, and we put on the fall, which is just for the coordinators, and it's usually a 3-day training period. We have a boot camp for our new 911 coordinators, and in this boot camp we train not only the coordinators, but we also train the industry people so that they can have a full understanding of what the coordinators do in the state of Florida, because they do a variety of things from the addressing to actually working a comm center. So after we do all of that, we then have a meeting for the one day that is nothing but the coordinators. And at this time, the industry is allowed to present any of their new ideas that they have, or they want to showcase some of their new equipment or something like that. And then usually the last day, we follow up with a NENA class that our E911 state board has paid for. So we have been able to offer to the coordinators and to the people that want to attend that class the ability to attend it at no cost to them. Then during the springtime, we do a joint conference, which is with the ADCO and NENA, and we also do a big trade show at that time. So here again, we have different tracks that are going on for training for the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Normally on Sunday, we will offer a NENA class, once again being paid by the E911 State Board, so that anybody that wants to attend it, it's no cost to them. And then sometimes we try to follow up with another NENA class on Thursday. This year we're all excited because we're going to be doing What's That Box Do for Sunday. So we're all, especially with the next generation and knowing all the components and everything, and then basically being able to open that up so not only can your comm center people attend it, but you also have supervisory people too. Because sometimes your regular telecommunication officer isn't aware of all the parts and pieces that need to go together in the back room, and this gives them that opportunity to do that. Then working with the conferences, I have learned an awful lot and have relied on being able to do the people skill of being able to bring the people together and put them all on the same page. So I feel like that's another very important thing for NENA, is that the membership needs to be communicated to, that they need to be able to be aware of what's going on with the organization, and they need to know where the organization, what direction it's going to take. As being on the strategic planning committee, that kind of gives me the opportunity to at least voice, coming from the Florida side, that this is what we would like to see, and this is where we feel like the organization should be moving toward, which to me, I am a very firm believer in getting the telecommunicators involved, because they're the ones that make your organization. The industry partners are very important, because without the industry partners, we wouldn't be able to put on the seminars or the conferences that we do down here in Florida. But they also play a big role, because a lot of times what's being sold to the public, it's already out there and it's being sold, and 911 is trying to catch up. So I think you have to have a really good working relationship with your industry partners in order to have them come to you and tell you this is what's going to be released, so this is what you need to start thinking about. Because without them telling us ahead of time, the 911 will always be in the background and never be able to catch up. And I think that's pretty close to my 10 minutes.
All right, Carolyn, thank you. We will move on to our next candidate. I'd like to introduce to you this afternoon Patrick Lustig. Patrick is with the State of Oregon 911 Program Office, and he recently joined that state from coming from the Southern Illinois County's Next Gen 911 project. He's been a telecommunicator. You're going to hear him talk about his experience in supervisory capacity and also his role with Illinois NENA for 5 years. So Patrick, at this point, I'll turn the forum over to you, and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning to the folks on the West Coast, and good afternoon to the Midwest and the East Coast. As you know, I am seeking the office of Second Vice President and would like to introduce myself and provide you with some background information. As Mary said, I am currently the Next Generation 911 Project Manager for the State of Oregon and have been in this position for approximately 8 months. Prior to this position, I was the 911 Director for Jackson County, Illinois for 12 years. During my tenure as the 911 Director, I served as the Project Manager for the counties of Southern Illinois CSI Next Generation 911 Project. The CSI Next Generation 911 Project brought 15 counties and 1 municipality together in an effort to deploy regional Next Generation 911 solutions. Prior to my position as the Jackson County 911 Director, I spent 22 years with the Jackson County, Illinois Sheriff's Office. I began my public safety career as a telecommunicator, working my way up to supervisor and finally division commander. During my 34-year career, I have held the position of Vice President for the Illinois chapter of NENA for 2 years, which afterwards I became the President and held that position for 5 years. One of the accomplishments that I'm most proud of during my tenure as chapter president was my work with the General Assembly in the creation of state statute to facilitate the deployment of Next Generation 911. As Second Vice President, I look forward to the opportunity to work with the current NENA Executive Board in NENA's primary mission of serving its membership. I would appreciate your support as I seek the office of Second Vice President. I believe my experience with Next Generation 911 deployments will serve NENA and its membership as we transition nationally. Transitioning our national legacy 911 system to a modern IP-based Next Generation 911 system must be NENA's primary objective. Demands from 911 leaders and other citizens and our citizens to modernize 911 are increasing. Standards have been and continue to be developed. However, without support from the carriers and the vendor community, the best system design and transition plans would be just that. NENA, through its Next Generation Partner Program, has the ability to engage all parties. Additionally, 911 leaders should determine whether or not state law, state regulations, tariffs, and overall policies allow and enable such new 911 system features. To implement a Next Generation 911 system requires effective policy, laws, and regulations that fully support all aspects of NG 911. If I am elected, I will work with the NENA board to assist 911 authorities to make sure that appropriate governance structures are in place both locally and nationally for effective implementation and operation of NG 911. The ability to manage both interstate and intrastate coordination will be the key factor in the success of NG 911. As we know, adequate funding to support state and local planning and implementation of NG 911 is imperative. Each state needs to have a state-level agency with appropriate authority and technical resources for planning, coordinating, and implementing a seamless communication system. 911 systems are funded by different and disparate funding sources today. Those funding structures typically require funding for separate and distinctly different systems. State and local government should examine funding, operations, and legislation to ensure they promote the needed IP architecture and multi-jurisdictional cooperation necessary to support NG911 deployment. Finally, 911 authorities must understand the importance of text-to-911 functionality. Text-to-911 capability is invaluable for our individuals who are deaf, hard of hearing, or who may have a speech disability. 911 authorities must be aware of unique requirements associated with text-to-911. This may include additional expenses or requirements related to equipment, training, education, and public perception. A 911 authority who wishes to provide this service should do so based on their capabilities now and in the immediate future. The solutions available for interim text-to-911 are currently available to respond to immediate need for this service. It is timely and important that 911 authorities give due consideration to this important topic. I think, Mary, that concludes my statement today.
Thank you, Mr. Lustig. Let's move on to Rob McMullen. I'd like to introduce Rob to those who may not know him already. He is the Executive Director of the Vigo County, Indiana 911 program. He is the current NENA North Central Regional Director for the NENA Board. He's also served in a President's role for Indiana NENA in 2008, and he is a member of the Public Education and PSAP Training Committee. Rob, I will turn it over to you for the next 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary, and thanks everybody for joining the call this afternoon. I would like to, first of all, again, introduce myself. My name is Rob McMullen. I'm the, as Mary said, the 911 Director for Vigo County. Some people pronounce it Vigo. It's kind of depending on the state that you're in or the area. Indiana, we're the 10th largest county in the state of Indiana. I've been in that position since 2011. Before then, I spent about 13 years with the small sheriff's department as a dispatcher and supervisor just to the north of where I'm located now. When I took over this position, in the 911 director, they had not had a director for about 5 years, and it was under the scope of the sheriff, and he was in control of everything. So I moved into the director's position coming from a small rural area of only about 17,000 people. Vigo County has 110,000, and we run about 110 to 115,000 calls for service a year. So I have went over, just really increased what I've had to do over the past few years. I got involved in NENA in about 2003, started on the state level as just attending a normal state conference, and fell in love with it, and the networking and the desire to do better for 911. Then shortly after that, I got involved with the state board, the state executive board, and was elected as a regional director or regional vice president. And from there, I quickly rose through the ranks to second vice and first vice president and immediate past president. I served a couple years as treasurer with the organization also. I've been actively involved in the state organization on the conference committee, bylaws, and the social media web page development. I've done that for the past several years, and have still always remember that the state is where I got started in. Several years ago, I attended my first national NENA function was a TDC ODC, as it was called back in the day. Now it's the NDC in Nashville, Tennessee. And thinking that it was just going to be an ordinary NENA conference, I was prepared to really, soak up and learn how everything was going to go and how NENA was going to help me. Well, at that conference, I figured out that it was not like a normal conference, and it was a working conference, and decided that that was the area that I liked. If you've not been to a National Development Conference, it's nice to know that's where the bread and the butter meets the street. That's where everything happens. That's where a lot of the policies and procedures and papers are started and written and continued. That's an actual working conference, and we get lots of things done and lots of ideas. So from that day forward, I kind of fell in love with the PSAP training and education part of it, and just really liked the whole aspect of that idea. Then I continued through my state organization, and then attended my first national NENA conference, and just continued to fall in love even farther. Shortly after that, I was brought in as one of the co-chairs of the PSAP planning, or the contingency planning committee with National NENA, and took care of a lot of, and was on, published a couple, or completed a couple of our papers and some industry, some guidelines that we needed to get forward with the devices and sensors and some of the new devices and items that are coming through on a daily basis, helping 901, or some people say hindering 901 at times, but bringing 901 more into the limelight. Here in Indiana, we've been a strong proponent of texting to 901, as Pat said, that was a big proponent of the next generation 901. Indiana is one of the leaders in the texting to 901, and I've been in my area. We've had it for over a year, the texting to 901, or we've been a kind of an early adopter in our state, both inbound and outbound, and we love it here. I'm kind of like to put through some of the misnomers of some of the agencies that are scared that it's going to cause an additional workload, or bring in all kind of the scare that we've heard lots of people in the industry that are worried about the texting to 901. I can tell them that it's not as scary as everybody thinks, and we're ready to bring it forward at a national level and help bring that forward in the national level, and let everybody know that it's not as scary as everybody thinks it is. It's a great tool. We've had several great saves in the state to bring texting into the forefront. Some of the things that I'd like to bring on, if I'm able to be elected, is we've got several areas, 901 authorities, agencies, counties, reservations that still are lacking in the 911 in their area. It's one thing that before they get left behind totally in the next generation, I'd like to see how we can assist those smaller agencies that are still lacking in the 911 services. What can we do? What can NENA on a whole do to assist them in bringing their agencies? I know there's not a financial boost that we can do, but what is the type of thing that NENA as a whole could do to reach out to them to make their folks understand that this is the way that we need to do, and this is the way of the future, and 911 needs to they need to make sure that they're offering the most up-to-date service that they can for their agencies. I'd like to continue working with the FCC and the location accuracy and the other guidelines that are on the forefront and coming out. Keep those rolling. Continue working on our membership. We've had great responses over this past year, couple years, of really increasing the membership within NENA, and we need to really keep that rolling, keep that going, make sure that those frontline telecommunicators have a voice, and they know that NENA is their voice for 901. If they have an issue, they need to go, they can contact any of us and we can help them, or if they have any questions or comments or just some place for networking, that NENA is a place for them to go. We need to really continue that, keep that going. and continue working our working relationship with our industry partners. Keep that as a, as our high priority. As Carolyn stated, if it wasn't for our industry partners out there, a lot of what we do would not be available. We need to make sure that we keep on the cutting edge, and that we communicate back and forth, that everything needs to be brought, as she said, that sometimes we're playing catch up to a lot of the 901 agency, or a lot of the 901 area, and keep that communication open, keep us a vital pact between the 911 industry and the industry partners, and also the telecommunicators, managers, and everybody else that's involved in 911. Keep everybody on the same page and keep us working together. Kind of lastly, I feel that my experience on the executive board for the past 2 years, I'd be able to come right in and understand. I have a vast understanding of the executive board at both the state level and the national level. I've been there, and I'm ready to continue to make it work in the future. I think that's probably about it, Marie.
All right. Thank you, Rob. Now we'll move on to our fourth candidate, Monica Millian. Monica has been in the 911 profession since 2001. She joins us from Grand Junction Regional Communications Center in Colorado. She served on the Colorado NENA board for 4 years, and in 2011 was the recipient of the Director of the Year award. Monica, we'll turn this over to you for the next 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, Mary. Thank you so much, and thank you for having us on this forum. This is a great opportunity for us to share our information with our membership. I started in this profession in 2001. I was actually a California transplant to the state of Colorado. My first 15 years of work experience, I actually worked for an aircraft manufacturer in Southern California. I graduated from Cal State Long Beach with my bachelor's degree. I hired in as a telecommunicator. I worked up through the ranks. I became a communications training officer. I promoted to a supervisor. I worked in some administrative capacity, and in 2010, I was lucky enough to get promoted to the operations manager role. It really opened a lot of opportunity. The state of Colorado manages their 911 system significantly different than most of the other states in the union. We do not have a statewide authority. We are a conglomeration of 57 different authorities, and we have to practice collaboration and good partnerships in order to information share, to build some of the networks and infrastructure of the systems that our technology is migrating us towards. I've been serving on our Colorado chapter executive board for the past 4 years. I served my first 2 years as the Western Regional Director, and then ran for the second vice president position, and this year I'm serving as the chapter's first vice president. In addition to that, I attended, like Rob, I have a lot of passion about the NENA Now development conferences. I attended when it was also the TDC ODC. I attended the first one after Hurricane Katrina, and really sat in on one of probably the most rewarding workshops I've ever participated in, and that was the development of the Telecommunications Emergency Response Team Initiative. I have partnerships with people that I worked on those committees 10 years ago with, and I'll elaborate on that later on, but it's those kinds of things where the foot hits the pavement. It's that work in those groups that becomes so rewarding in your career in participating in NENA and the association. I co-chair our state training standards committee. I have for the last 2 years. I'm also on the Colorado Public Utilities Commission's 911 Task Force, and participated for the short period of time that we stood up a Next Gen 911 steering committee. At the national level, I've been participating in the PSAP operations committees since my first NENA ODC TDC. And in the last year and a half, I've participated in the National Membership Committee. And I think our greatest success from that is the advent of the telecommunications, or I'm sorry, the telecommunicators membership. And as we all know and have my partners on the call have shared, the membership numbers are improving dramatically because of that ability of our telecommunicators to participate in the membership. I have taught and facilitated at the last 2 national NENA conferences. I've helped plan and organize our last 3 state joint APCO-NENA conferences. I also currently serve on our Colorado 911 Resource Center Board of Directors. In 2013 and 2014, I had the honor of working with Ty Wooten and the EAB to help update some of the training materials. Also in 2014, I partnered with several of our other ENPs in the state of Colorado to webcast first ever ENP study groups, and we now maintain them on a state website where future association members who want to test for the ENP have training material to reference back to, or if you need to retake the test, there's materials for you to go back and look at that. And also in 2014, something that I'm particularly proud of here in my own community is my agency partnered with Colorado Mesa University to offer the first ever emergency dispatch course. We partnered with them, and we now teach that here each semester at our agency, and it's become a great avenue for recruiting for all of the agencies in the western half of Colorado. So those are just some of my most recent accomplishments. Some of the things that we all have kind of touched on, the biggest challenges facing us today is, quite frankly, technology. The 2 biggest factors, or the 2 biggest issues, are the location accuracy and adopting text to 911. Like Rob, our agency, we were the 4th center in my state to adopt text to 911, and I think, unfortunately, as technologies become introduced to our comm centers, we always have that fear of change, and we create some of our own problems by maybe over-dramatizing what the impact of some of these technologies may be on the day-to-day operations of our centers. I believe, like Rob, our center has not had that kind of impact. We have a minimal number of calls, but the bigger impact is that we've afforded an opportunity for the hearing impaired and deaf community to reach public safety services, and that's the most important thing. And I think NENA's been doing an outstanding job at all of the conferences and meetings of finding forums for agencies who have shared their experiences on text to 911 to help diminish that fear that has developed over the last few years when we were all onboarding text to 911 technology. In regards to location accuracy, again, in my view, NENA's leading the way and working and developing partnerships with the FCC. Great work from the national office in giving us information, partnering with those our industry partners in figuring out where our targets for location accuracy need to be, how do we help each other improve, how do we get that information out there, how do we start testing what our location accuracy really is within our own communities, and then again, it's all about the information sharing. Those are the two biggest issues that I see as far as what's facing public safety. When I get elected to the second vice president role, if I'm lucky enough to get your votes, I feel like the membership growth, we have to harness the energy and the momentum that we have gained from the surge in membership. We have to carry that momentum forward into the working groups and these best practice development groups to keep our success moving forward. It's that intrinsic value that as an individual you gain by participating at the ground level in those committees and work groups. And that's where we get our satisfaction and our value and what we see as the association, those relationships that we build through those working groups and committees and that participation, the interactions that we have with one another, the best practice sharing, and I hope to be the mechanism to help facilitate some of that, that collaboration. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, candidates, let's move to our questions now. Carolyn, we'll go back and start in alphabetical order, just to give everybody a heads up on that. I will ask each of you 2 questions. And if I could ask, given we have about 23 minutes left, if my clock is correct, if you could limit your answer to 1 minute, that would be wonderful. So Carolyn, my first question for you is, how would you inspire or encourage the growth of the association?
One of my thoughts on that is, I know there's a lot of courses that NENA offers, but on the telecommunicator side, where they don't have the funding to be able to attend those classes, I would like to see where we could do some more of the free type classes that we could offer more to everybody. Once again, letting the telecommunicator and the supervisors that are in the center learn some of the backroom equipment, as well as having some of the industry people coming in so they can learn exactly what is going on in a day-to-day center and not just trying to sell a product. So to me, one of the things would be offering the free classes. I can also would like to set up a mentor program. I find that sometimes when you have somebody that you can call and just ask questions to, or somebody that just even says, hey, I've got that same problem that you've got, that we were able to solve a lot of things. And I think having a new member that doesn't know exactly what is all out there available for them, that if they have somebody that's a mentor or somebody that has been a member for a while that can explain exactly what some of the things are, and especially some of the acronyms that everybody uses now, on where to go and look for it, and what resources are out there for them.
Okay. In line with that, thank you for that one, Carolyn. What would you identify as 3 of your strengths or core values that you would bring to the NENA board and then ultimately to the membership?
I'm a very firm believer of communication. So everybody will tell you I do tend to beat something to death, or wanting to talk it to its fullest so everybody's on the same page and fully understands. I do have leadership capability, especially where I've had to bring together a lot of people, and where we did get our prepaid fees through legislation this year. So that, to me, and adaptability, that being able to accept what we can do and what we can't do, and being able to go with the flow, or having to stop and change to a different direction. I think those are all very important things, especially the adaptability, because of everything that is changing so much with technology, that you have to be able to adapt to go with it.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to Pat Lustig. My first question for you, Mr. Lustig, would be, if you were elected to second vice president, you will be on the executive board for 4 years. Where would you like to see NENA at the end of your tenure?
Mary, I would like to see NENA remain as that organization that has the ability to successfully advocate on behalf of 911, and by doing so, see recognition from our federal legislators that 911 is an essential component of Homeland Security, and thus become eligible for grant opportunities and increased funding. Additionally, I plan to work with the NENA board to be more involved with states and 911 authorities in the development of statewide regional, statewide or regional emergency service IP networks to facilitate next generation 911.
Okay, and with that, could you also tell us what you would believe are your three strengths or core values that you would bring to the NENA board?
Leadership, integrity, and experience. My leadership at the state level, where I worked with the legislature to create statutes to facilitate next generation 911, would be beneficial to our membership. Also, while in that leadership position, I began a process whereby 911 professionals came to their state capital to meet with their legislators to discuss issues important to them. This program is in its 7th year and was modeled after the 911 Goes to Washington program. My experience creating private-public partnerships for regional next-generation 911 deployment will benefit my role within NENA.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Our next candidate is Rob McMullen. Rob, what do you see as the #1 issue facing public safety right now, and what can NENA do to address this issue?
I feel that the #1 issue right now is technology, and it's not a bad thing. Technology is great, but I feel that there's so many agencies that are not ready to, either financially or just with the equipment they have, is able to do it. I would like to see in the future that NENA take a strong, kind of as Pat said, take a strong role in DHS and see if we could get some grant money available for the agencies to see if there's a way that they can offset some of those funds or some of those ways to help everybody lead forward or get caught up with the technology so they can move forward with the next generation.
Okay. And if you were elected to 2nd VP and you'll be on the executive board, where would you like to see NENA at the end of 4 years?
At the end of the 4 years, I would like to see NENA as be the #1 voice in the 911 industry, have a membership of about 25 to 30,000, and make sure that everybody basically everybody in the world knows when there's an issue with 911, or if there's any type of go-to questions or comments or anything that people need to know about the 911 industry, either on the telecommunicator side or industry partner side, that NENA is the first call that everyone makes. Our NENA headquarters, our board, our staff are the ones that make sure those calls are answered so they can get the correct information out there.
Okay, thank you, Rob. All right, and Monica, on to you. You mentioned some of the challenges that public safety is facing. What do you see as the #1 issue facing public safety right now, and what can NENA do to address the issue?
Thank you, Mary. I kind of touched on it in my introduction. Like Rob, technology is our biggest challenge. I think what happens just as individuals, we want the latest and greatest and newest widget and gadget and software application because we think it will improve the efficiency of our work. And I think sometimes, especially the smaller agencies, they don't have the support or infrastructure to vet systems and processes. Again, going back to the work on location accuracy and the self-initiated fear, I think, that we created amongst ourselves on texting to 911, just continuing to educate each other on what really is happening at centers who've adopted that technology and are able to provide that layer of service to their community, and how it's really assisting the hearing impaired and deaf community for equal access to public safety services. Those, I'm just going to reiterate, like I said, what I stated. It's the technology that's our biggest problem, and using NENA with their industry partners in continuing to information share and the networking to vet those fears.
Okay, thank you. And final question for you is, what would you identify as 3 of your strengths or core values that you would bring to the NENA board and to our membership?
I am tenacious, if nothing else. I'm very passionate about what we do. I'm very passionate about the people I serve, and I call my employees I serve, the citizens in our community, my membership in our chapter, and even at the national level, the committees that I participate on. When I believe in something, I follow through with my commitments and the ideas of collaborating with my partners. I also demonstrate a great ability to compromise, and I think that's been demonstrated just in particular over probably the last 5 years of my career in the different working groups that I've participated on, you know, everyone from working level telecommunicators up to state elected officials, legislators, appointees by the governor, those types of people, and being able to compromise, listening and compromising so you come to win-win solutions. It's not about the fight, it's about getting everybody successfully across the finish line. And then lastly, leadership, my leadership ability.
Thank you very much. At this point, we will open it up to the membership for questions. Chris, are you able to open the bridge up, or is this coming in by email?
Yeah, sorry, I know I had some trouble with my audio earlier. If you have any questions, please submit them through the GoToWebinar interface. There's a little box where you can type in your questions. And while we wait for those questions to come in, I want to go back and once again mention these dates to remember. Next week, everyone who is eligible to vote in the election will receive access to the online ballot and instructions to vote. You'll have until May 19th to complete your ballot, and once you do make your selections and cast your vote, you can't go back and re-vote or change your vote. So once you vote, that's it. At our annual conference coming up in Denver, at the beginning of the conference, the election committee will meet and certify the results, and then at the end of the conference, at our installation reception, your new board will be sworn in. So if anyone has any questions about anything they've heard, we did record this webinar, so you'll be able to go back and look at it again. It'll be available on our YouTube channel. And again, I encourage anyone who has any questions to submit those now via the GoToWebinar interface. Okay, folks, seeing no questions, I think everyone really did a wonderful job today, provided a lot of information. Also, if you go to the NENA website and look in the news section, there's an election announcement, and if you go into that news item, you can see the candidate bios and their written statements if you want a little bit more information on each of them. So, Mary, any final words before we sign off here?
No, just thank you again for the participation of our candidates and also for our membership. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mary.
Mary, thank you. And thank you, Rob and Carolyn and Pat. It's an honor to be in this competition with you. I wish you all the very best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. You as well.